Dr. Emily Nash stood before the towering quantum core of Project Prometheus, its crystalline structure pulsing with an otherworldly blue light. The facility, buried deep beneath the Australian outback, housed humanity's most advanced technological achievement, a weapons system that had taken 30 years and the combined genius of Earth's greatest minds to create. "Status report," she commanded, her voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. The quantum holographic displays surrounding her workstation showed real-time data from the disabled alien vessel now being towed to a secure facility in the Pacific. Dr. James Chen, her longtime colleague and husband to Major Sarah Chen, manipulated the controls with practiced ease. "The quantum entanglement network is stable. All 37 sites are synchronized and ready for activation." He paused, studying a particularly complex data stream. "The aliens' technology, it's remarkable, but there are clear gaps in their understanding of quantum mechanics. They've barely scratched the surface of what's possible." Emily nodded, remembering the day 15 years ago when they'd first detected the quantum signature of alien surveillance probes at the edge of the solar system. That discovery had accelerated Project Prometheus from theoretical research to humanity's ultimate insurance policy. "Dr. Nash," a voice called from the communication station. "General Rodriguez is online. Priority Alpha." The holographic image of the general materialized in the center of the room. "Doctor, I assume you've been briefed on the situation?" "Yes, sir. The Shadowwhisper's crew is being held in quantum stasis, and their ship's technology is exactly what we expected. They rely heavily on conventional physics, advanced, but predictable." Rodriguez's expression was grim. "Our quantum intelligence network just decoded their transmission to the Ragma Empire. They're already mobilizing a response fleet. Conservative estimates give us 2 weeks before they arrive." He paused, his next words carrying the weight of decades of preparation. "The Security Council has authorized Scenario Omega. Project Prometheus is now operational." Emily felt a chill run down her spine. They had practiced this scenario countless times, but the reality was far more daunting. "Understood, sir. But you should know, there's a 22% chance that full activation could have unforeseen consequences. The quantum cascade effect could reshape the fundamental forces within our solar system," Rodriguez finished. "I've read the reports, Doctor. But we're out of options. The Ragma Empire needs to understand that humanity isn't the primitive species they believe us to be." His hologram flickered slightly. "How long until the system is fully operational?" 12 hours for complete quantum synchronization. After that. Emily studied the pulsing core, its light reflecting in her eyes. "After that, we'll be able to rewrite the rules of engagement." "Literally." "Very well. I'm authorizing the release of Security Protocol Echo 7. Major Chen will courier the quantum keys personally." Rodriguez's image started to fade. "Dr. Nash, good luck. To all of us." As the hologram disappeared, Emily turned to her team. 30 of the world's best quantum physicists, engineers, and military specialists, all chosen for their ability to think beyond conventional boundaries. They had created something that even the Ragma Empire, with all its advanced technology, couldn't comprehend, a weapon that didn't just bend the laws of physics, but temporarily rewrote them within a localized space. "Begin activation sequence," she ordered, her fingers dancing across the quantum interface. "And someone get me a secure line to Dr. Patel at the Quantum Defense Research Center in India. We're going to need all hands on deck for this one." In the depths of space, aboard the Ragma Empire's flagship Eternal Dawn, Admiral Valen reviewed the Shadowwhisper's final transmission with growing rage. The holographic display showed the impossible, their most advanced stealth ship, disabled by weapons that shouldn't exist. "Status of the response fleet," he demanded. His tactical officer, a cybernetically enhanced warrior from the Empire's elite guard, responded immediately. 12 battlecruisers assembled, Admiral. 3 more will join us within 48 hours. We can launch within. No. The voice came from the doorway, where General Zox stood, his aged features set in a worried frown. We're making a mistake. Valen's bioluminescent patterns flashed with anger. A scout ship was attacked. The Empire cannot allow such an insult to go unpunished. That scout ship, Zox said quietly, was captured with suspicious ease by a species that, according to our intelligence, shouldn't have been able to detect it at all. He moved to the tactical display, his expression grave. We're missing something crucial about these humans, Admiral. And I fear we're about to learn exactly what that is, at a terrible cost. Lieutenant Kexri awoke in a room that shouldn't exist. The walls shimmered with an iridescent energy field she'd never seen before, and the air itself seemed to pulse with strange quantum frequencies. Her crystalline eyes struggled to focus, something was interfering with her enhanced vision. Your optical implants won't work here, a calm voice said. A human female stepped into view, wearing what appeared to be a simple military uniform. We're maintaining a localized quantum field that restricts certain laws of physics. Think of it as a primitive security measure. The slight smile suggested this was anything but primitive. Major Sarah Chen, the human, introduced herself. I have some questions for you, Lieutenant Kexri of the Ragma scout ship Shadowwhisper. Kexri tried to maintain her composure, but the implications of what the human had said were staggering. How do you know my name? Our encryption was quite sophisticated, Chen finished. But quantum decryption has its advantages. She gestured, and a holographic display materialized between them, showing the Shadowwhisper's complete database. We've been studying your people for decades, Lieutenant. The real question is, how much has the Empire misunderstood about us? In the quantum research facility, Dr. Emily Nash's team worked furiously to bring Project Prometheus fully online. The quantum core's pulsing had intensified, and the air crackled with potential energy. Quantum synchronization at 67%, Dr. James Chen reported. But we're seeing unusual patterns in the probability matrix. Emily studied the data with growing concern. The quantum fields were interacting in ways they hadn't predicted. Show me the temporal variance readings. The holographic display expanded, revealing complex mathematical patterns that seemed to shift and change as they watched. This can't be right, James muttered. The quantum cascade is creating microfluctuations in local spacetime. Dr. Nash, a technician, called out urgently. We're detecting an energy surge from the alien prisoner containment area. The quantum field is resonating with something. Emily's eyes widened as realization struck. They're biological quantum implants, they're more sophisticated than we thought. Get me Major Chen immediately. But in the interrogation room, Sarah Chen was already noticing something was wrong. The quantum field containing Kexri had begun to fluctuate, and the alien's crystalline eyes were glowing with an inner light that hadn't been there before. Fascinating, Kexri said, her voice taking on an odd harmonic quality. Your quantum technology, it's awakening something within us. Something the Empire forgot long ago. Before Chen could respond, alarms blared throughout the facility. The quantum field surrounding Kexri wasn't just fluctuating, it was transforming, creating patterns of energy that seemed to reach into dimensions that shouldn't exist. In orbit, Earth's defense platforms detected multiple quantum anomalies appearing throughout the solar system. Ancient devices, hidden in plain sight for millennia, were beginning to activate. General Rodriguez stared at the tactical displays in the SSDI command center, watching as thousands of previously invisible structures revealed themselves. What the hell are we looking at? Dr. Nash's hologram appeared, her expression a mix of awe and terror. General, we didn't just capture their scout ship. We've triggered something much bigger. The quantum resonance from Project Prometheus, it's activating dormant quantum technology throughout the solar system. Technology that predates both humanity and the Ragma Empire. On the eternal dawn, General Zox burst into Admiral Valen's command chamber. The humans, they've done it. They've awakened the Precursor network. Valen's bioluminescent patterns pulsed with shock. Impossible. The Precursors are a myth, a story to frighten children. No, Zoc said, pulling up ancient star charts that were suddenly alive with quantum signals. They were real. And their quantum defense network has been sleeping in that solar system for millions of years, waiting for a civilization advanced enough to activate it. He looked at the tactical display showing their assembled war fleet. If we attack now, we won't just be fighting the humans. We'll be fighting the combined technological legacy of the most advanced civilization this galaxy has ever known. Back in the interrogation room, Kexri stood, the quantum field no longer containing her but rather flowing through her. Major Chen raised her weapon, but stopped when she saw the expression on the alien's face, not triumph or aggression, but something closer to revelation. Your Project Prometheus, Kexri said softly, her crystalline eyes reflecting patterns of quantum energy that seemed to extend into infinity. You thought you were building a weapon. But you were actually building a key. And now? She looked up at the ceiling, sensing the ancient quantum network awakening throughout the solar system. Now we all have to deal with what you've unlocked. In the quantum research facility, Dr. Emily Nash watched as the probability matrices spawned impossible patterns, each one representing a future that no one, human or Ragma, had ever imagined possible. The game had changed, but now she wasn't sure anyone knew the new rules. And somewhere in the vast quantum network stretching across the solar system, ancient protocols began to execute, preparing for possibilities that had been waiting millions of years to be realized. Dr. Emily Nash stood before the assembled leaders of Earth's major powers, their faces illuminated by the quantum hologram displaying the solar system's transformed state. Thousands of precursor installations pulsed with ancient energy, forming patterns that defied conventional physics. 24 hours ago, we thought Project Prometheus was our ultimate defense system, she began, her voice steady despite her exhaustion. We were wrong. It was never meant to be a weapon, it was designed to interface with something far more advanced. Something that's been waiting for us to reach this level of quantum understanding. The Chinese premier leaned forward. And the alien prisoner? This. Lieutenant Kexri. She's agreed to help us, Major Chen answered, stepping forward. The quantum awakening affected her entire species. The Ragma have hidden abilities in their genetic code, placed there by the Precursors millennia ago. They just didn't know it until now. The hologram shifted, showing the Eternal Dawn and its battle fleet holding position just beyond Saturn's orbit. Admiral Valen had not retreated, but neither had he advanced. The standoff had lasted 18 tense hours. And what do these Precursors want? The U.S. President asked, her eyes fixed on the swirling quantum patterns. Before anyone could answer, the quantum hologram flickered and expanded. A new figure appeared, Lieutenant Kexri, but transformed. Her crystalline eyes now held galaxies of quantum information, and her body seemed to exist in multiple dimensional states simultaneously. They want what they have always wanted, Kexri said, her voice resonating with harmonics that seemed to touch every mind in the room. To prevent what destroyed them from destroying us. In the silence that followed, Dr. James Chen's voice came urgently through the quantum comm. Emily, we're detecting massive quantum fluctuations from the core. The Precursor network, it's not just defensive. It's trying to show us something. The hologram shifted again, and everyone in the room gasped. They were no longer looking at the solar system, but at a visualization of spacetime itself. Threads of quantum probability wove through the fabric of reality, and along those threads, something dark was moving. The Precursors didn't die out, Kexri explained, her form shifting through quantum states as she spoke. They transcended, moved beyond our dimension. But before they left, they saw what was coming. A hunger that devours entire universes, crossing from one reality to the next. They built the network not to fight it. You cannot fight entropy itself, but to give younger races a chance to follow their path. To transcend before it's too late. On the eternal dawn, General Zox watched in awe as the same vision played out before the Ragma High Council. Admiral Valen's war fever had been replaced by a deep understanding of how small their conflicts truly were. The humans, Zox said softly, they didn't just unlock the network. They unlocked our own evolution. The precursors encoded quantum information in our very cells, creating a bridge between what we are and what we could become. But they needed another race, one that approached quantum physics from a completely different direction, to complete the circuit. In the quantum research facility beneath the Australian outback, Dr. Emily Nash watched as Project Prometheus's core transformed. The crystalline structure was no longer just a quantum computer, it was becoming a gateway, a door to possibilities that human minds could barely comprehend. Dr. Nash, Kexri's quantum-enhanced voice echoed through every facility connected to the network. Your people took 30 years to build Project Prometheus. The Ragma Empire spent millennia spreading across the stars. Apart, we were just playing with forces we didn't understand. Together. She paused, her form temporarily resolving into something more solid, more present. Together we might have just enough time. Time for what? Major Chen asked, though part of her already knew the answer. Time to learn what the precursors learned. Time to become something more than we are. Kexri's form began to shift again, patterns of quantum energy swirling around her. The hunger between universes is coming. And we have maybe a decade to transcend before it arrives. Dr. Nash looked at the assembled leaders, then at the quantum projections showing the approaching entropy between dimensions. Their weapons had become tools, their enemies had become allies, and their understanding of reality itself had been fundamentally altered. But the hardest part was still to come. Well, she said, a slight smile playing at her lips despite the gravity of the situation, I suppose we should get to work. We have a lot to learn, and not much time to learn it. In orbit around Earth, the ancient quantum network pulsed with renewed purpose, its energy patterns telling a story of endings and beginnings, of threats and possibilities, of separate races finding a common destiny in the space between heartbeats and the quantum foam between universes. The game hadn't just changed, it had become something else entirely. And somewhere in the darkness between realities, ancient eyes watched as their plan, millions of years in the making, finally began to unfold. The first signs of transcendence appeared 3 months after the awakening of the Precursor network. Dr. Emily Nash noticed it in herself first, quantum probability patterns dancing at the edges of her vision, moments where her consciousness seemed to extend beyond the confines of normal spacetime. But it was her daughter Katie, only 6 years old, who showed them what was truly possible. Mom, Katie said one morning, her small hand tracing patterns in the air that left quantum traces visible to their enhanced perception. I can see the strings that hold everything together. And I can play with them. The quantum research facility had been transformed. Where once there were sterile labs and military protocols, now there were meditation spaces and consciousness chambers. The Ragma scientists who had joined them brought their own insights, their own evolutionary awakening complementing humanity's quantum leap. Lieutenant Kexri, now serving as the primary liaison between the two species, watched Katie's demonstration with intense interest. The child's ability to manipulate quantum strings without technology was beyond anything they had anticipated. The children are adapting faster than we expected, Kexri observed, her own form flickering between states of matter and energy. Perhaps because their minds aren't as fixed in their understanding of reality. Dr. James Chen monitored the quantum fluctuations surrounding Katie. The neural patterns are remarkable. She's not just observing quantum states, she's intuiting them. Like learning a language through immersion rather than study. In orbit, the combined fleet of human and Ragma ships had begun their own transformation. The Precursor network was rebuilding them from the inside out, turning metal and energy into something that existed in multiple states simultaneously. Admiral Valen, who had once dreamed of conquest, now spent his days in deep communion with the quantum consciousness that was emerging among both species. But not everyone was embracing the change. General Rodriguez stood before the UN Security Council, his expression grave. "We're talking about the end of humanity as we know it. Yes, there's a threat coming, but are we sure this transcendence is the only answer? That we're not being manipulated by forces we barely understand?" Dr. Nash had expected this resistance. She stepped forward, her form slightly translucent as she allowed her quantum state to become visible to the assembled leaders. "The precursors left us a choice," she began. "The network contains their knowledge, their history, their mistakes. They discovered that consciousness itself is the key to surviving the collapse of reality. When the entropy between universes arrives, physical existence won't just end, it will never have been. Unless..." She paused, gathering quantum strings between her fingers like a weaver working with threads of light. The display caused several council members to shift uncomfortably in their seats. "Unless we evolve beyond the need for physical form. Unless we learn to exist as patterns of consciousness in the quantum foam between realities. The precursors didn't just leave us technology, they left us a path to survival." In the quantum research facility, Katie Nash sat in a circle with other children, human and Ragma together. They played games with probability, their young minds reaching across species barriers to touch something infinite. Their laughter echoed through quantum space, rippling across the solar system. General Zox, watching through quantum-enhanced senses from the eternal dawn, felt a profound sense of peace. The Empire's long journey through the stars had been leading to this moment, though they hadn't known it. The precursors had seeded their potential in the Ragma genetic code, knowing that someday they would encounter a species that could help unlock it. But in the spaces between dimensions, the hunger was growing stronger. Major Sarah Chen, her consciousness expanded by months of quantum integration, could feel it now, a void that consumed possibility itself, approaching through layers of reality like dark water rising through ice. The network sensors, extending through space and time, gave them a more precise estimate: 8 years, 4 months, and 17 days until it reached their universe. In her quarters, Dr. Nash held her daughter close, watching as Katie's fingers traced quantum equations in the air, mathematics that the greatest minds on Earth were only beginning to understand. The girl hummed softly, a melody that seemed to resonate with the frequency of reality itself. "What do you see, sweetheart?" Emily asked. Katie smiled, her eyes reflecting patterns that existed in more dimensions than human biology was meant to perceive. "Everything, Mom. I see where we came from, and where we're going. The precursors, they weren't running away. They were becoming something beautiful." She reached out, touching a quantum string that only she could see. "And we will too." In the heart of Project Prometheus, the crystalline core pulsed with new purpose. It was no longer just a key, it had become a cocoon, a chrysalis for 2 species on the verge of metamorphosis. The question was no longer whether they would transcend, but whether they could do it in time. And in the quantum spaces between moments, the children of 2 worlds played with the building blocks of reality, showing their elders the way forward, one probability at a time. The quantum rupture occurred 6 months into the transformation process. Katie Nash was playing with quantum strings in the research facility's consciousness chamber when she accidentally touched something that wasn't meant to be touched, a fold in reality that the precursors had carefully sealed away. The effect was immediate and catastrophic. Reality rippled outward from her position, probability waves collapsing in chaotic patterns. Dr. Emily Nash felt the disturbance from 3 levels away and rushed to the chamber, her partially transcended form shifting through walls and floors in her panic. "Katie," she called out, but the chamber had become a maelstrom of quantum energy. Her daughter floated in the center, her consciousness expanded beyond any previous limits, touching minds and memories that had been sleeping in the quantum foam for millions of years. Lieutenant Kex-Ree appeared beside Emily, her crystalline form pulsing with alarm. "She's accessing the Precursor memory vault. It wasn't meant to be opened yet, the human mind isn't ready for that level of information." But Katie wasn't just accessing the memories, she was living them. Through her expanded consciousness, everyone connected to the network suddenly found themselves experiencing fragments of the Precursor's final days. They stood in cities that existed in 12 dimensions simultaneously, watching as the entropy between universes approached. The Precursors, beings of pure quantum consciousness, made their final preparations. The network was their legacy, their gift to the younger races they had watched and guided from afar. But there was something else, something they had hidden away. In orbit, aboard the Eternal Dawn, Admiral Valen clutched his head as the visions overwhelmed him. "The gate," he gasped. "They built a gate." General Zox, his own consciousness expanded by months of quantum integration, understood immediately. Not just a gate, a bridge between all possible realities. A way to preserve consciousness itself when the entropy comes. Back in the chamber, Dr. Nash fought against the quantum currents to reach her daughter. The girl's physical form was beginning to dissolve, converting into pure quantum information. "Katie, honey, you have to come back. You're not ready for full transcendence yet." But Katie's voice, when it came, resonated through the quantum field with unexpected clarity. "It's okay, Mom. I understand now. The Precursors, they weren't just trying to save themselves. They were trying to save everything. All possible realities, all potential futures. They built the gate, but they needed someone else to find the key." Dr. James Chen's voice cut through the quantum chaos. "Emily, her consciousness is expanding exponentially. The quantum readings are off the scale." Through the network, they all felt it, Katie's mind touching something vast and ancient. The gate was hidden in the space between spaces, and the key was consciousness itself. Not just individual awareness, but the combined quantum consciousness of multiple species working in harmony. The Ragma weren't meant to find Earth by accident, Katie's voice explained, her physical form now barely visible within the quantum energy. The Precursors engineered everything, your empire's expansion, humanity's quantum research, even the exact moment of first contact. We're all part of the pattern. Major Sarah Chen, monitoring from the Military Command Center, watched in awe as new data flooded the quantum networks. The gate's location, it's everywhere. It's in the quantum structure of space itself. We just couldn't see it until now. Through Katie's expanded consciousness, they all glimpsed the truth. The Precursors hadn't just built a defense against the entropy, they had created a way to rewrite the fundamental laws of existence. But activating it required something they hadn't achieved: true cooperation between different species, different ways of thinking, different approaches to the quantum reality underlying everything. "Mom," Katie said, her consciousness gradually returning to a more focused state, "I know what we have to do now. The children, human and Ragma, we can see things the adults can't. We're not limited by old ways of thinking. We need to lead the way." Dr. Nash helped stabilize her daughter's quantum state, gradually guiding her back to a semi-physical form. But Katie was right, the children of both species had been showing them the path forward all along. Their minds, unburdened by preconceptions about what was possible, were naturally reaching toward transcendence. In the quantum research facility's main chamber, Dr. Nash faced the assembled leaders of both species. The holographic displays showed Katie's discoveries, the gate's quantum signature, the pattern of consciousness required to activate it, the true purpose of the Precursor network. "We have just over 7 years until the entropy reaches our reality," she began. "Thanks to Katie, we now know exactly what we're working toward. The Precursors built the gate, but they left it to us to forge the key." She looked around the room, at humans and Ragma together, all of them touching the quantum consciousness that would save them. "The question is, are we ready to truly work together? To transcend not just our physical forms, but our divisions, our prejudices, our limitations?" In orbit, the combined fleet began to pulse with new energy as the network incorporated Katie's discovery. The ships themselves were becoming more than machines, transforming into quantum structures that existed in multiple states simultaneously. And somewhere in the void between universes, ancient quantum signatures stirred. The precursors had waited millions of years for this moment, the moment when their chosen inheritors finally began to understand the true nature of their legacy. The gate was waiting. The key was forming. And in the quantum spaces between moments, the children of two species continued to play with the building blocks of reality, showing their elders the way to something greater than either civilization had ever imagined.